So I got a question from Moose Moose on Twitter about how to improve your pen or pencil lines in your digital art. Where do you even start? Well, I'm going to tell you. So, number 1, avoid chicken scratch lines. And by chicken scratch, I mean when you do tons of little lines instead of one line. For one, it doesn't look very confident, and it makes your lines look sketchy. You want your lines, especially when you're doing, say, like line art, to be a lot smoother because it'll suggest more fluidity, it'll lead your eye around the page better, and it's better for your wrist, honestly. But yeah, you want to use one line instead of several. Yeah, basically, instead of doing several little lines to make up one line, just use one smooth line. It'll look a lot better. So to get that perfect single line, my best advice is to make the line quickly. So as smooth and fast as you can, draw circles, draw curves, draw lines, and the faster you do it, the smoother it'll get. It does take some practice kind of getting used to it. Like I used to just draw circles over and over again until I could draw like a really smooth circle just by freehand. Yeah, it just gets, you're more precise with it, and you'll train your hand to like put the curve in the right way with practice. But I find when you draw slow, at least for me, I find my hand wiggles, so you get like wobbly lines, or the line looks weird. I don't know. Admittedly, I'm very fast when I draw, but that is how I get my smooth, swift lines. But yeah, it'll add extra movement to your work. It'll go faster, for one thing, and it'll show a lot of confidence in your work. Control Z, or Command Z, is your best friend. Half the time I will draw a line, and then Control Z, and then another line, and Control Z until I have the perfect line that I want. So don't be afraid to do that. There's nothing wrong with it. So going back to that point with the chicken scratch lines, about how it's bad for your wrist. So doing small little lines and using your wrist when you draw will cause a lot of like pain up in there. Your lines will become a lot smoother and have better curves to them if you use your whole arm to draw them. Your shoulder has like a better range of movement than your wrist, and you can get those like big sweeping lines with them. So draw with your arm and your shoulder and not with your wrist. So then getting into more of the kind of styling of lines to make them look more dynamic and cool and pleasing. So a neat little tip that I learned from Grizz and Norm, I'm sure you've probably heard of them if you're into the art scene. They're illustrators for Disney, and they do Tuesday tips about all this cool art stuff. Anyways, they had a really cool one about pairing curved and straight lines to create dynamic shapes in your work. So the way they describe it is straight lines, the eye moves quickly along them, whereas curved lines can suggest form and the eye goes through them slower. So you can do a lot of cool things with pushing shape and like suggesting neat forms if you pair a straight line on top with like a curved line on the bottom or whatever. I'll put a link below to the Grizz and Norm tip I'm talking about, and you can go read it because it's really good. But yeah, so having like a contrast of lines in your work will definitely add dynamism to it. And another cool style tip for your lines is to add line weight to suggest like a whole bunch of different things. So adding different weight to your lines means different thickness of lines. So like whether that's adding pen pressure like on a curve or going in later and like adding some weight to your lines, having a good balance between say like a thin line and a thick line, it can suggest so many things. Like it can suggest movement, it can suggest weight, it can suggest form. So that's another way to make your lines look super dynamic. Add a little line weight. It'll stop the piece from looking boring or static. All these tips just take practice. I found my line work improved a ton from doing a purely black and white comic for a long time, where I was really able to focus on the line art rather than, color and all that other good stuff. But yeah, just get your practice in, practice drawing smooth lines. You'll get there. You got this. I hope that answered your question. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you have your own questions, please leave a comment down below or find me or Bones on Twitter. Wherever. We want to answer your questions. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye!